Good afternoon. It's good to be here on Monday, the 5th of September, a new month, and certainly Government of Anguilla press conferences. We've had a short hiatus, but the hope is that we will meet the first and third Mondays of each month, unless the Monday is a holiday, of course. And I would like to welcome everyone who's here. Welcome to the ministers, the press, ministerial assistant, Dites, of course, for keeping us live and on the air. To people of Anguilla here and abroad, listening or watching, I want to thank you. Before we go on, I'll ask Minister Hodge to lead us in a word of prayer. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. Dear Lord, we come before you today, giving you thanks for your bountiful goodness upon this island, the lovely showers of rain that we have been receiving. We also pray as well as the children return to school. We pray for the children, their teachers. We pray for a good term of hard work, productivity. We continue to pray for this island as we go through the closing stretch of the hurricane season, that you will continue to protect this island against natural disasters and other calamities. We bring these before your name this afternoon. Amen.
Thank you, Minister. I'd like to wish, heartfelt condolences to those who have lost loved ones. We know Mr. Ralph Hodge, his mom passed earlier today. She was a centurion. We just pray for God's blessings and strength for the family, and to all those who have lost loved ones, and to those who are sick. We ask that God's healing mercies be upon them. And we also know that there are Anguillians who have lost loved ones in the diaspora. My cousin Kathleen, Webster, and Bev Harrigan, who lost their son recently in an auto accident. And these are sad times when we lose young people whose potential was in front of them, and that now is gone. And those who have lost loved ones due to COVID. And one of the things we see happening here in Anguilla, there's a lot of strokes, sequelae of non-communicable chronic diseases. And we do, ask everyone to, as a public service announcement, that they get checked, especially our men for prostate. I saw the St. Augustine Church had a session. I think these are important, that we look out for our health and for those around us, because life is unpredictable. Again, want to say welcome. And since today is the first day of school, I will ask the Minister for Social Development and Education to make her presentation. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Of course, welcome back to school to all of our students across the island, in the high school, from the primary school, preschool, and high school level, and also in our tertiary level institutions. I know that a lot of parents have been looking forward to our children going to school, and it's been a pleasure to see all of the back to school photos being plastered on Facebook this morning. We are looking forward and progressing with the education development plans, some of which we intended to start this September, but will be pushed back until January 2023. Some notable ones include the Education Management Information System, which will be responsible for collating and assisting us with communicating with parents and between schools and parents in a more effective and efficient manner. And we are also, of course, looking at how best to deliver the high school package in a timely and efficient manner. Of course, we know that part of the packages for the education high school sector have been delayed. One of the packages that was included in the program was terminated, and we are following up on further progress to ensure that the packages still are completed so that our schools and our students can adjust to the new buildings. As it relates to programs within the Ministry of Social Development, we are next week, Thursday the 15th, I believe Thursday the 15th, we will be launching our Family First program, which is a national parenting program to strengthen the family as a vital unit in society, building support for healthy relationships among family members and the wider community. We've been building on this program for a number of months. The Ministry of Social Development and Education, in partnership with PAVE and the Community Services Planner, and we look forward to you joining us next week, Thursday, the press and the wider community, as we launch this program and outreach across our various media houses next week. We also conducted last 2 weeks ago, I believe 2 weeks ago on the 19th of August, the sports strategy meeting, which would have been looking at our strategic plan from 2023 to 2026. We had a number of stakeholders present from all associations on the island, about 40 or 50 persons. I'll let Felicia confirm whether or not that's true. We did have a lot of engagement around the strategic plans and goals for sports for 2023-2026, and we did share that funding was one of our key priorities in sports for the next 3 years. We are developing and building on our international relationships, specifically with the British Olympic Association. During the Commonwealth Games, they would have indicated they are dedicated and committed to supporting Anguilla in achieving better funding for our sports development. And this is going to come in different forms, both in terms of capacity building. They have already supported some of our coaches in accessing educational support. So they would have gone off to the University of Exeter, I believe, to do some coaching programs. And these are going to be accessible across all sporting disciplines to better develop our coaches. We are now looking at our all of our coaches across all sports to be able to benefit from this program, as well as our volunteers. We, aside from what the British Olympic Association is doing, we're looking at integrating our sports offering so that if one of our sporting bodies is offering a specific program, that we can piggyback on that program to allow for collaboration across all sports. And for a specific example, we have the FIFA football is going to be launching a grassroots program in our primary schools. And with that grassroots primary school program, they will be teaching a number of volunteers some key areas, including child safeguarding in their coaching programs, and developing and building the capacity of our volunteers, which is a key priority for the Ministry of Social Development and Education. And we will be looking in the next couple of months to be launching our volunteering strategy and policy as it relates to our wider community and to our schools, specifically our 5th and 6th formers. We will also be launching our drug and alcohol policy in our high school. We've been working on the drug and alcohol policy for some time now, and we finally will be taking it to Executive Council next week for finalization. We have also been working on further strengthening our social services sector. What we are working on is developing a partnership with the UK social services agencies. So members of our social services agencies will be going to the United Kingdom and doing attachments to their social services agencies and vice versa, which will allow us to learn best practices from one another and be able to better offer services to our general public and those who access public assistance programs. And Finally, we will be looking, of course, today we had the launch of the CXC results. Later this evening, our students will be able to go online and access their CXC results, and I know that must be very nerve-wracking for a lot of our students, as they would have put a lot of time and effort into preparing for those examinations. But we do hope the best for our students, and we know that irrespective of the result, irrespective of the grade, that they will make a way for them in the future and in whatever career path they do choose for themselves. So we do look forward to sharing with them, sharing the good news, being a helping hand and a support for them, irrespective of what results they get back this evening. So that is a update from the ministry on our programs. There are a couple other programs to update you on, but we will wait until next week when we have the launch of some of our other programs and an update on our school feeding and school lunch program.
Just two quick questions. As it relates to the sports strategic plan, we know that the Anguilla Cycling Association have put out a petition, a GoFundMe, seeking funds to assist Zambezi. Do you know where they are at this point in time? Were they able to achieve their goal in getting the funds?
So I'm not sure about the full amount, but I do know that the Department of Sports gave a contribution of $5,500 to the overall fund. The total fund to date, as in what they have already had in hand, I'm not sure of the specific figure, but I do know that they are getting support from the Department of Sports. Although we give apportionments to each association per year, we have carved out some money from the budget to be able to give specifically for this purpose. We had given support to Hassani earlier in the year, and we're going to give some more support to Zambezi.
You mentioned campus, yes, campus is like in the quarter. I know yesterday you were on progress report, and you mentioned that it's unfortunate that one of the contractors, they are no longer there, and you said that is a legal issue right now. Do you know if by chance we'll be able to complete sometime by next year? Or will this have to go back out to bid in order to get a contractor on that particular project?
So yes, we will need to take it back out to tender. We will look at different options for what particular tendering option we can use, because we do have a timeline that we want to close very quickly so that we can get the kids into the school as soon as possible. We will be taking some advice from the Attorney General's chambers in relation to how we progress with the matter, and that's why I have to be a little short with what I say, because I don't want anything to prejudice any further arrangements that are being made. But we are pursuing the matter vigorously, and we do intend to have the package 2 delivered to the school next year. So we're working on a revolving relationship. So this is going to be an indefinite period, and that is because Anguilla does not have a National Olympic Committee. Anguilla is one of the only BOTs, other than Montserrat, that doesn't have a National Olympic Committee itself. We have to use the British Olympic Committee in order to compete at the Olympic Games. So the British Olympic Committee, we've established a very good relationship with them, and they have indicated that they are willing to support us in developing our coaches, developing our athletes. So athlete development is one area in which we're going to get support. We're also going to get support in relation to coaching development. So once an association has indicated that they have coaches they want to deploy and they want to train, whether it's from level 1 straight to level 5, they are prepared and willing to fund the coaching of these, the training of our coaches.
Honourable Minister, when will we
The IOC, the International Olympic Body, has prevented and stopped all nations from applying, any further nations from applying for Olympic status. The only way that you can get Olympic status from this point onwards is to become an independent nation. So until Anguilla is an independent nation, it cannot have a national Olympic committee. There was a window in which territories that are Olympic or affiliated territories of the UK, the Netherlands, etc., would have been able to apply for national Olympic status. Unfortunately, Anguilla did not at that point in time, and after the particular scandal with the Russian Olympic Federation, they have closed the door on new Olympic federations coming into the door. So Anguilla, unfortunately, has gotten squeezed, and we won't be able to access direct Olympic funding until we become an independent nation. I would have shared a couple months ago that the TVET, the infrastructure for the TVET program, was not a part of the new school development plan. So that particular plan requires an extra $4.8 million for it to come to fruition, which of course is something that we have to look very deep and hard for. That being said, the TVET Council is doing some work in preparing standards for us to share across our school plans with our plan that we're currently using. And we will be able to make some plans for our eventual rollout when we have the school, and even in the interim while we don't have the actual infrastructure at the new campus. We are looking at partnering, making some strategic alliances with TVET personnel across the region, not just in Anguilla, to see how best we can leverage those programs without having all the necessary infrastructure at the moment. So we're kind of doing a hybrid programming right now until we can get full programming in one central location.
Thank you, Minister. That was very thorough, and certainly if there are no other questions, then I will go to the Minister for Home Affairs to talk about that ministry. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Premier, and a pleasant good afternoon to radio listeners and those watching via the social media. I wanted to speak briefly on three things this afternoon. And the first one gives me great pride to speak about our new Anguilla Understudy and Career Development Program. It is, as it has been said, it's close to 40 years overdue, but better late than never. And we have the view that it's going to revolutionize the impact on Anguillians and Anguillians' involvement, not only in the hospitality sector, but throughout the corporate sector in Anguilla, because this policy applies across the entire gamut of business in Anguilla. And it is grounded in the Labor Relations Act, so it is grounded in legislation. It is also grounded in ILO standards. And in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all the various aspects of that, but I will be on progress report later, and I will give a more in-depth breakdown of that. But just to say that this now sets very clear expectations on the part of the employer, the employee, and it finally puts teeth to a situation over the years where there has been just been lip service. We are very excited about it. We're rolling it out now in anticipation of the new season. We'll be monitoring and evaluating as it goes along, and no doubt in the months and the year ahead, we will be continuing to make changes. But for now, we are excited about it. We are looking forward to see what it will bring in terms of the growth of Anguillian labor sector in Anguilla. And then the other thing I wanted to speak about very quickly is the issue of work permits. This continues to be, as they say, a hot button topic. I was on Keystone this week and also on Hammer on Thursday. And for purposes of this forum today, I want to again outline what I would have given as a breakdown. So across the entire sector in Anguilla, it includes hospitality, which is our hotels, our small hotel guest houses, villas. So across that particular sector, which I will call the hospitality sector, we currently have 176 permits. And that represents 11.23 of the total work permits granted. And of that 176, we break that down into 52 new permits, 17 renewals, and 107 temporary, and these are what we call very short-term permits, sometimes 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, 4 months, as the case may be. And of the 52 new ones, we had 13 at director level, 2 at consultancy level, 2 at assistant director level, and 35 other more general positions. And that left 88.77% of what we would call the general work permits. And I attempted to break these down. It's a long list. I'm not going to go through it entirely. But that list includes things like teachers, principals, accountants, consultants, technicians, auditors, nurses, managing director, pastors, barristers, entertainers, veterinarians, photographers, cashiers, clerical related, graphic designers, store clerks, market helpers, models, sale clerks, babysitters, barbers, caretakers, hairdressers, housekeepers, interns, nail technicians, gardeners, landscapers, farmers, animal attendants, fishermen, AC refrigeration assistants, animal attendants, carpenters, electricians, heavy equipment operators, truck drivers, installers, mechanics, masons, roofers, sailors, captains, surveyors, butchers, meat cutters, painters. That's a general sense of where the other 88.7% is broken down, and that works out to about 1,391 work permits. And then the third thing I wanted to draw to your attention is that we are continuing to make some major amendments to the Labor Relations Act, and we have just sent out for their feedback to the HTA, Chamber of Commerce, the Financial Services Commission, and also the Bar Association, a swathe of new amendments. And I'm just going to maybe just highlight a bit about them. Those amendments deal with things like layoffs, service charge, leave, changes in terms and conditions of employment, and overtime pay. So these are some major amendments which we're hoping to get before the House before the end of the year. It is our intention, once we get the feedback from these stakeholders, to bring these out to a wider audience through the radio, public consultation, before we go to the House of Assembly. So it's a very active year in terms of the ministry, and we look forward to your continued support and attendance as we go through these various exercises. In a nutshell, that is what I have to report today. Any questions?
The question isn't anything to do with the... Where are we now with the minimum wage process?
Right. So the committee, right. So since the committee was established They were given within a month to come up with terms of reference and their plan of work. That has been done and submitted to the ministry. We are now looking at that. So the committee is well on track in terms of what it was asked to deliver. And outside of that, the committee is meeting regularly. From all accounts, members of the committee are enthusiastic, and we are looking forward to see the offerings from this exercise. We should have something fairly tangible later this year.
Is there a time in terms of when it will be presented to the public?
The committee has a life of a year in the first instance. It's going to take some time, right? I was just in my browsing, I came across a document establishing a minimum wage in Bermuda. This is online, you can Google it. These processes take some time. It is not something that we can sit down and just arrive at a figure. It takes some time, consultation, and of course we are waiting some of the results from the census as well, which will feed into the final results. But we do ask that the public gives us a little time to continue the work. It's not something that we can rush. We are working quickly, but at the same time, we want to ensure that we get a proper product that can be presented to the people of Anguilla. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Minister. And certainly good work coming out of your ministry, and we'll progress as quickly as we can, but as cautiously as necessary. I'll go over to the Minister for Infrastructure, Communications, Tourism to give his report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Premier. Must thank God for the showers of blessings that we have been bestowed upon us. We've had prolonged drought period, and with those blessings, we saw a lot of water on the Valley Main Road over the weekend. And we know that the drainage, for the most part, we have all the beautiful plants on the road, and a lot of the leaves got into the receptacles, so the water could not penetrate as it should. But those are cleared now, so we're ready for the next crop of rain. Hopefully we'll have it over the next few days. So that has been sorted. The Blowing Point Ferry Terminal, as you know, is progressing well. Windows and doors are being installed. The electrical, plumbing, and all those fixtures are being installed. The tiling, for the most part, have been completed. Internal painting, the external painting has also commenced. So we're very pleased with the progress over there at the Blowing Point Ferry Terminal. And we are definitely, it's going to be on schedule, and we'll have it open and ready for visitors, and locals and visitors alike, for December of 2022. Tourism, as you know, have performed extremely well. There has been a significant amount of revenue, not only generated for the properties and the government of Anguilla, but also for persons who have worked in the sector. A lot of people, when you meet them every day, they tell you it has been a great season. Taxi drivers, restaurateurs, ground transportation, aviation experts. And to that end, we have an aviation report, as you know. Quite recently, we placed on the government of Anguilla's website and published the Anguilla Airport Master Plan that will guide our development over the next 20 years. So we have already commenced that work, and August the 22nd to the 27th, we did a topographical study and survey over at the airport, both on the land side and on the air side. Those to mark out the areas in which the geotechnical work is going to commence for the new terminal building. And the geotechnical work commenced on August the 27th. And that has been going extremely well. Sorry, August the 29th. That has been going extremely well. On August the 27th, we demolished some buildings that were projecting into the airdrome on the eastern side of the airport, on the northeastern side of the airport. That was similar to the poles that we removed earlier in the year. That gives us increased capacity. The geotechnical study should be finished very soon. And on Monday, We'll have aviation consultants on island as well, doing a consultations program with a number of key stakeholders, from the aviation persons to critical members of the industry. So these things will be moving forward because, as you know, we'll be moving forward in terms of the new terminal building, and we want to be able to get as much impact before we put that out to tender. So the process is that we will be placing on tender the design of the airdrome, of the terminal, and after that is done, then it will be going to tender in terms of the construction, the contracting company that will develop that terminal. But so far, the work has been progressing extremely well, both on the land side and on the air side. As you know, earlier last year, December, when we announced the commencement of the flights into Anguilla from American Airlines, being conducted by the American Airlines, we did say that the levels of business will determine the frequency in which American will be coming to our shows. And we started off with 2 flights a week, we went to 4 flights per week, and then we went to 7 flights a week. So right now, as it is, they're operating for the month of August, they operated 3 flights per week. And this week, it will be reduced to 1 flight per week as the hotel are closed, and most of the restaurants are closed. And then in October, we'll be going back to 4 flights per week because the hotels this year will have a shorter closure period. And hopefully in 2023, we'll get to the point where a number of our hotels will open year-round, as Aurora has done so. And in November, we will go back to daily flights out of Miami. And then in December, we will have 8 flights per week in that daily flights. And then on a Saturday, we'll have 2 flights on a Saturday. So that's a great improvement from where we are. So this is going well. Sky High, as you know, is operating an Embraer 190 out of Santo Domingo, the capital. And we're very happy with that. The Embraer 190 is the largest jet that comes into Anguilla, even bigger than American Airlines jet. And a lot of people may ask the question, how is it Embraer 190 is flying out of the Dominican Republic into Anguilla and not out of New York into Anguilla? But it comes down to weight capacity. And the Embraer 190 can carry 100 people. But flying out of New York will have increased fuel. And with that increased fuel, it means that we'll have less persons. So that is the difficulty and the challenge. But it does show you that we can easily facilitate an Embraer 190. And just last week, the last flight flying out of Anguilla to the Dominican Republic was 90 persons. So the capacity is 98, and flying with 90 persons was a good haul for them. And it's really good because what it also does is open up another avenue, another gateway into Miami. So you can fly into Dominican Republic, Santo Domingo, and from Santo Domingo on to Miami. So you can do that on the very same day. So that's really good for Anguilla and our travel trade industry. Thank you.
Mr. Hughes, did you say that next week we'll have a number of aviation consultants in?
Yeah, the aviation consultants, that's the consultants that did the aviation master plan. They'll be coming back on island to sit with stakeholders, to have a discussion on the airport, the terminal, the parking lot, and what have you. Because
Okay,
they want to get as much input from the stakeholders as possible.
Okay, I was curious because I realized next week there's a CTO meeting, and IATA's VP will be moderating the roundtable at the 4th Caribbean Aviation Day. So I was just wondering if that was the reason why we had the aviation consultants.
No, it's just so
Okay,
happened
I
to
thought
be.
it was International Aviation Day. or
I
something.
won't be here for that consultation, by the way. I will be at the Ministers of Tourism meeting in Cayman Islands starting on the 11th of this month.
Yes, will there be other persons traveling? I realize that there's also a youth congress. Will there
No,
be any
only-
youths from Anguilla
No, only
participating in that
only
debate?
myself.
Only yourself?
Yes, the budget dictates that.
Oh, okay. All right.
With reference to the terminal building, how many levels will there be in this new terminal building?
You mean how many floors?
Floors, yes.
We don't know. We don't know. What we are doing is we're building for the future, but at the same time, we're building within the parameters of our financial position. So there are a number of factors that's going to be determine the size of the building. But what I can say is that the initial idea of the building is that it's going to be built with the capacity to extend on either end, east and west, how we do directions in Anguilla. So it'll have the scope for expansion, just as the Blowing Point Ferry Terminal has the scope for expansion going up. The airport terminal will definitely have the scope for expansion on either end. So before we go up, we might utilize what is on ground level.
Mr. Hughes, since you've been in office, you've been able to get the Valley Road completed, and we have the airport master plan currently on the way, and the Blown Point Ferry Terminal, which you mentioned, is right on schedule. On Wednesday, you made mention that you're hoping to complete your goals, or to accomplish your goals during your time in office. Could you tell us what some of your goals are? Because I don't know, I'm thinking about the Anguilla issue, the water corporation, and those are some very huge problems. So I'm just wondering if that also entails achieving your goals.
Well,
in
let it be,
rectifying those issues there.
let it be clear, those are not my goals, those are shared goals. Those are the shared goals by this administration and by the people who elected us. These are the things that we said we would deliver to the people of Anguilla. These are goals that we discussed in cabinet, and none of the things that it would seem that I have accomplished was accomplished by my own doing. They were accomplished with the collaboration of the entire cabinet and without the funding of Her Majesty's government, through the work of Her Excellency and his, the línea Daniel Selvaratnam, in terms of the Valley Main Road, the airport road, and those projects that came since we've been in office could have been done without the collaborative and cooperation of each of the parties that I mentioned before. So I just want that to be clear. So it is not a Hayden Hughes thing. It's a government of Anguilla's thing. But I just want to say that the other issues as it relates to Anguilla is still something that we would like to see remedied. We believe that we can work in the spirit of partnership and collaboration and cooperation, even in the face of adversity. And this is something that we continue to try to work out amicably. And I hope that over the next few weeks, we can sit around the table and realize the goals that all of us share in that of renewable energy integration. As a matter of fact, this administration, led by the Premier, is going to the House tomorrow to move forward with the legislation to amend the Custom Procedure Code, the CPC, to reflect that the electric vehicles, EVs, will not attract any excise anymore. You know, these are the things that we are looking to do, and we want to transform Anguilla into a green economy, because by transforming Anguilla into a green economy, it brings more economic and environmental sustainability to the island. And this is a shared vision of the government of Anguilla led by the Premier. So these are things that we want to do, and we want before the end of this term that we can transform the delivery, the production of electricity through the Anguilla Electricity Company. This is something that we want to do. We still have the time enough to do it. And once we can sit around the table and we have everyone who can buy in, yes, we will have differences of opinion. You know, as a married person, you have differences of opinion with your wife and with your husband. But that does not mean that you're enemies. And even in the business world and government, we'll have differences of opinion, even if as we have the same goal, how we get there. We have some differences of opinion as it relates to how we get there. And out of those differences of opinion, you see all sorts of propaganda being spewed around in WhatsApps and what have you, which is ridiculous, you know. Nobody comes to government to get rich and to receive a bribe, you know. We come to government to do what is best for the future of this country so that our great-grandchildren can have a place that they can call home. So I just want that to be clear.
Honourable Minister, in doing the Valley Road, there's a lot of access roads that were opened up. Would your ministry be maintaining those roads?
We have not, the access roads that have opened up, we have not done any real maintenance work on those roads, but we have been doing maintenance work and remedial work on a number of other roads. The reality is that, as said from the very beginning, I don't like the idea of spending money on dot roads. That's the reality. But unfortunately, we are not in a position to be able to pave these roads, and that is why I keep speaking about probably reinstating the idea of the Public Works Department. Because back in the day, when we had a Public Works Department that did chip and seal roads across the island, you can do a chip and seal road. Instead of doing a dot road, you do a chip and seal road. In throughout Anguilla, from Island Harbour to West End, you see a lot of roads that are chip and seal. Once we outsource that, the bad decisions that were made to outsource that, we don't do that anymore. We can have a little budget in the ministry, and you have to do a mall request, to request a mall, which is dot, to go in dot road. So when the rain falls, it washes it away, and when the wind blows, it blows it away. So we have to look at how we can get back to where we were, because in some instances, all progress isn't progress, it's regression. And in my opinion, that is regression.
Thank you, Minister. All right. Let's start with the Ministry of Health. Ministry of Health, update on COVID. We have 18 active cases in Anguilla, 0 persons hospitalized. We are now up to 12 deaths. Unfortunately, we had a COVID-related death at the hospital last evening. We want to give our heartfelt sympathies, condolences to the family. Currently, we in terms of vaccines, we have 70% of the population have had their first dose, 67% have had completed their second dose, 19% of the population have had boosters. Certainly not where we want to be. We'd like those numbers to be higher, and so I encourage persons to continue to get vaccinated. We still have Pfizer vaccine available. In terms of monkeypox, and that is a threat out there. Certainly we ask persons to look out for the symptoms, which would be fever, rash. Although these are non-specific, if anyone has come into contact with anyone with monkeypox or have those signs and symptoms, they should get checked by their doctor or the clinic or the hospital. I just want to say there is monkeypox in the region. Even as close as St. Martin, there was 1 case. Barbados, Jamaica, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico. And we do have, most of our tourists come from the United States and also the UK. We do have monkeypox. And so just something to be on the lookout for. We are increasing capacity here to be able to do testing for monkeypox. Right now, samples have to be sent to CARFA, but we've gotten some supplies from PAHO to help, and we are working on that capacity. If there are any questions, I'll try to answer.
Dr. Webster, as it relates to health, I know next week, I saw on Facebook that there'll be some doctors in from the orthopedic and spine clinic. What can you tell us about that?
The orthopedic and spine clinic is at Southern Medical Center in Trinidad. Dr. Rupert Endor, who is one of the principals of that institution, and we do send a lot of our patients from Anguilla for secondary and tertiary care to Southern Medical Clinic. He is an orthopedist, and he will be here in Anguilla. He has been here before, has seen patients with health authority, and he will be here next week seeing patients, mostly follow-ups from patients he's operated on or patients that have gone to Trinidad for care, and also any new patients. There will be times available for them to be seen.
Dr. Webster, a senior person asked me to ask this question: when Paxlovid tablets would be available for COVID patients who are older with pre-existing condition?
Thank you for that question. We have raised that. Certainly, I remember at the Joint Ministerial Council in November of 2021, the UK did, agree that they would provide us some of the oral medicine when it became available to them. As of this time, we don't have any. but we certainly looking into having some of those doses available for the use, especially as you said, in older patients who may not respond to the current treatments.
Okay, can you give us an update on the scanning machine that we're supposed to be having?
Certainly. As you know, the MRI scanner was donated by Aurora, by the Richard Schultz Family Foundation, who's the owner of Aurora Resort and Golf Club. That was the first payment on that was done since March. The machine is ready. It has been ready for at least 2 months. The issue has been getting it shipped to Anguilla. It's right now in Dallas, Texas, and it would have to be transported across country to a port to ship to Anguilla. The usual companies that ship into Anguilla were concerned about the delicate nature of the machine, and the insurance wouldn't cover. And so just a couple weeks ago, I have been working through the shipping agency in Anguilla, who have been very helpful. We find there's a company that will ship out of Jacksonville, Florida, through to Puerto Rico, and then through to Anguilla. So we are working on that, getting that finalized. And hopefully within short order, we should have that set up and the machine should be here. We have gotten some funding to prepare the site at Health Authority at the Princess Alexandra Hospital, help with the slab from Richard Schultz Foundation, and we've gotten assistance from Mr. Robert Seamus, who is a villa owner at the Four Seasons Resort, who provided the electrical supply, which cost over $50,000 US. And we will get help with the shipping from another, expat who has a home in Anguilla. When we get the actual numbers, then I'll be able to state what and who that.
Dr. Webster, can you give us an update about the dialysis unit, and what is the cost for this building, and how many persons will be able to house at one given time?
The building, which is under construction now at the Princess Alexandra Hospital, is a new dialysis center. I saw they were doing some pouring last week. Hopefully this increased rain didn't slow us down, although it has potential to. And there was $1.5 million was appropriated by the United Kingdom government for that. We're also hoping to use part of that as the isolation unit, so that the psychiatric ward can be converted back into full use for mental health. In terms of how many dialysis units can fit in there, it just depends on how much we can afford. Right now, we had 12 units, only about 6 are working. So we're hoping that, we'll get funding to get, upgrades on those units. Someone did just go off training in the U.S., to service and maintain the dialysis units. So the work is ongoing, and in terms of capacity, it certainly depends on how many machines we can get in, because certainly we do have patients who are on machines around the clock, except on Sundays, and I think that's a lot of wear and tear on the current machines available. If there are no other questions for health, I just want to say that last week we approved the committee for looking at bringing the Health Authority back under the Ministry of Health, and that committee should be having regular meetings to make those recommendations, and then that will go back to Executive Council for ratification. In terms of the Ministry of Economic Development, just want to update. We are still continuing price control on fuel, gas, with both suppliers, Delta and Sol. We do hope that as prices, hopefully come down, that those control the maximum price orders will reflect that. In terms of consumer protection, price control, the Ministry of Economic Development is still working on that because we do feel it's necessary to have price control so that we can control the cost of living, especially as it comes to, food items. And then in the ministry also we're working on certain projects and policies. Capital development policy program policy is being worked on. Gaming is being worked on. We're also looking at the projects that are coming on stream. The Ani Villa Shoal Bay MOU signed, that should start fairly quickly. The Altima Marina MOU is signed, and the principals of that will be on island soon. We're looking at the Four Seasons property was sold to the DOT group out of the Cayman Islands, and they're not only interested in the hospitality sector, but also in community service and also other areas where they can enhance the community in which they do business. And they are, if you look at their portfolios in Cayman Islands, they have participated in building secondary schools, renewable energy projects. We have been approached about the sale of Cebu in Crocus Bay, Cove Castles down in Shoal Bay West. There is the Savannah Bay project, which is still on stream. And then there is a project for a luxury hotel and villas and marina in Rendezvous. So we are still, pushing hard to get, economic development going so that it increases jobs, but not only increases jobs, but the level of jobs. Where, there's more need for high-skilled, high-paying labor, and we want Anguillians here and Anguillians in the diaspora to come back home to take up these positions. Any questions on economic development?
Dr. Webster, could you say the thing further more about the sale of Cebu, the investors, potential investors who are interested in this property?
No more than that at this time. We certainly have been, potential buyers have met with cabinet. They have a good plan, and they also have ideas of how to help with the water, production, and the electrical supply of that. So at this time I can't say much more than that, except that the meeting was very productive.
With the election of the new Prime Minister of England, of Great Britain, if you want to put it that way, Liz Truss, how do you see the relationships with overseas territories going forward?
Well, would like to say congratulations to the Prime Minister. I don't know if you can say elect or select, since this was done by the party itself, since they're in power. Ms. Truss, Prime Minister to be Truss is the foreign minister, and so I would assume that there would be good relations with our territories, and so we did meet. She made a presentation at the JMC last November, So I know that there is, connection with the overseas territories. We will have to wait and see if our minister, Minister Amanda Milling, will stay on as Minister for the Overseas Territories. But other than that, I assume that, the Foreign Commonwealth Development Office and Her Excellency the Governor here would be our contacts with the UK government, and that's not going to change.
I just want to go back a bit. What is the position right now on the proposal for a Latin area for jet skiing?
And that is still the plan. Minister, you'd like to speak a little on that?
The initial draft policy is already, well, we had hoped it was completed, but it has been deferred for further consultation. So, and then obviously once the policy is completed, just as they understood the policy has been completed and was tabled at EXCO and approved by Executive Council, we'll then come to the general public for more consultation, because the policy is just the beginning of it. There's also the legislative aspect of it, the regulation part of it. So those things have to be done. But we would hope that, within the month of September, we can get that passed through Executive Council to start a consultation process. And the hope is that by the end of the year, that is a hope, it's ambitious, to be honest, given the limited capacity at the AG's chambers, but that we can have some legislation that we can come to the public with, because it affords opportunities for young entrepreneurs to get involved in business, and a new business, and a business that was here before, that was very lucrative before, that increase the offerings to the persons and visitors that come to the island. Instead of taking a day trip to go to St. Martin to do it, they can do it in Anguilla's territorial waters in a very controlled manner.
Thank you very much. Any other questions for economic development?
Honourable Premier, I would like to go back to our Commonwealth, because games, we have a lot of hype goes on before the games. We make a lot of preparation and these things, but after the games have been concluded, everything seems to just die out. Last Saturday evening, we had the Fleming Lakes family putting together a little ceremony for the swimmer that didn't have a swimming pool here to swim, but went out and did such a remarkable job for Anguilla. But it seems as though we just played that down. We didn't really put that hype into it that we should have. Because here is Anguilla without an Olympic swimming pool. And here we had a youngster representing Anguilla, went out there and was able to participate in 5 events. My sport reporter calling him the strong man of Anguilla, because he went and did 5 events. But we didn't even seize that opportunity to, talk about it, get it up. We allowed the BBC to run this thing on Anguilla. We didn't do anything.
Well, thank you for bringing it up. But the event last night was in association with the Ministry of Sports, so it wasn't something that took place in isolation. The Ministry of Sports is very well aware of the contribution and the hard work that Alex, his parents, his family, his coaches would have put in to ensure that he was able to represent Anguilla at the highest level of sport. And that he was able to break to make 5 Anguillan records at the Commonwealth Games. So it is not lost on us that we need to use this opportunity to push for greater resources and facilities for our athletes in Anguilla, specifically in the area of swimming. Now, this wouldn't have been a traditional area. This is the first time in Anguilla's history that we've had a swimmer compete at such a high level. And that obviously now opens a question about where do we put a Olympic-sized pool. We've heard lots of reports in relation to using or borrowing other people's pools in order for him to swim and practice. And those are all considerations that we're having. We're looking at, we did have some discussions last year in relation to a pool that is built by the seaside. That's something that's very common in European countries and in the UK. They don't actually build the pools inland, they build them right on the shore side. We were looking at that particular plan. However, we saw some of the erosion that was taking place in some of the major beaches, and we had to reassess where that would be located. So it's not lost on us. It's not something that we take very lightly. It's something that we wanted to celebrate, which is why we were celebrating it on Saturday evening. It's why we were there at the Commonwealth Games, cheering Alex on, cheering him on for the work that he's doing or what he's been able to accomplish, and to see exactly how we can move forward. Of course, the Department of Sports is not necessarily the biggest department in the government of Anguilla, so we have to see exactly how best we can position ourselves, which is why the partnership with the British Olympic Association is so important, because it gives us the opportunity in circumstances where we don't have access ourselves to be able to leverage those opportunities to do better and to do more. So it's not lost on us. It's not something that we're not taking into consideration. In fact, that's part of the discussions that we're now having with the British Olympic Association. They did ask us to identify 4 key areas or 4 key sports where we are planning on doing some further development, specifically with the vision of having those athletes represent the UK in the Olympic Games. At the moment, they have identified 4 key sports, but we're going to add swimming to that list now. So that's me sharing what has happened since the Commonwealth Games.
Thank you. Mr. Premier, can you give us an update on the finance of Anguilla?
I was getting to that under the Ministry of Finance, which we save the best for last. But thank you for the question. So I'll do it as part of my report from the Ministry of Finance. Currently, we're in a budgetary cycle, so we are now looking at the budget. We've been having meetings with CARTAC, the IMF, and the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office in the UK, the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Economic Development, regarding our budget for 2023 and the medium-term economic and fiscal plan 2023 to 2025. We are looking at some policy directions and that this administration has been pushing, and that is providing health care for those who are 70 years and older. That is right now the actuary who also did the Social Security review and the Public Service Pension Fund reviews is doing the study for us on that to determine what it will cost. And then we want to bring that in as soon as possible. We have had some meetings with a consultant for national health insurance last week, where we looking at bringing that in, the national health insurance. There's legislation that has been drafted and that has to be reviewed, and then determinations as to how to phase that in and the timetable on that. In terms of the goods and service tax, which was implemented the 1st of July, well, I must say the final phase was implemented the 1st of July 2022, the first phase being implemented the 1st of October 2019. We've had 91% compliance with reporting, and the first reporting was due the 22nd of August, given that the 20th fell on the weekend. The collections for July, which were collected in August, $10,188,069.23. That is $10,188,069.23. 3.7 million of that was collected by customs during the month of July. and 6.4 million of that collected by IRD during the returns, which was the 22nd of August was the time for that. Credits to businesses, $781,061.23. I just want to say that these collections are above projections at this point in time. That's where we're at. Preview for August. August Customs has collected 4.15 million, and the IRD collections would be due the 20th of September. So in terms of the finances of the country in general, in terms of our revenue, recurrent revenue was supposed to be $259 million, expenditure $229 million. We did have a supplementary recently where we got another $15 million supplementary, and that was to help with some of the cost of living benefits that we rolled out in terms of the giving the $1,000 per domestic electricity account over July and August, giving removing the excise from fuel, gas, diesel, propane, the $500 food voucher to those 70 years and older, the increasing those who want public assistance, increasing that benefit by 25% over 3 months. And so those are had to be paid for, and certainly that we had also the work at the Vivian Vanderpool Primary School, the roof. We had to get $96,000 to fix that roof and the areas around, among other things. And so that now there has been a surplus, and I know there's a lot of talk out there that we have a surplus, and the use of that certainly. And as I said, every time we do a supplemental, we budget, you have to find the funding for that, and that would come out of any surplus that there is. So I would say the general rule is that the projections are better this year than they have. That what we projected, we've collected more than we projected. That has helped us to not have to get the $13 million as a third tranche of the loan from CDB, and we're hoping that we don't have to use that. We have been able to not use the $20 million that we have in overdraft at NCBA, and I think that helps because as you increase, your debt, then you certainly decrease the chance that you can do certain services. Now we do, we have arrears that are significant. There's, and we have to make sure that we can cover those. Some of that includes deferred salaries for public servants. We have University of the West Indies, we owe them. The Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court, we owe them. Because we have obligations, and sometimes we can't meet them given our fiscal position, and we try to defer and delay as much as we can. We certainly want to make up for some of that, those deferrals and arrears. Otherwise, what they do is we have to provision for them every time, and that puts us in a bad fiscal space. And as I was saying, every time we have to pay debt this year, or debt service is over $52 million. Which if you think about of our revenue, we were hoping to get 259, and 1/5 of that goes into paying debt. That is really in a bad position. And so we are hoping we can pay down some of the debt, of course, and that reduces the amount of services that we can, and policies, that new policies that we bring in. So healthcare for the 70-year-olds is one of the things that we campaigned about and that we want to do, and we're hoping that with this surplus, we'll have enough money to fund that, whether in full or in part as we go along.
Dr. Webster, as it relates to the GST specifically, would you say that you're pleased with the revenue collection for this?
I am, yes,
You are?
yes.
Okay.
It's better than projected, and that's always good, because then it puts us in a position where we can continue to pay for essential services. You know, we have a situation here where there are teachers, as they become certified, their salaries have to automatically be increased. And if we couldn't pay that, then that would put us in a bad position. And some of the supplementary budget was to make sure we could do that this year.
Honourable Premier, how are you, or how would you tackle, because you said you have a surplus, but how would you look at this Anguilla situation with the Water Authority?
Well, certainly we have made a proposal to Anguilla in terms of, you know, trying to keep the Water Corporation current with their current bill. That is, they end up paying about $450,000 a month. Water Corporation, because of water losses during the production, because of a contract that has a minimum payment, which is significant, and they are unable to meet that payment. So government has taken on that responsibility, that we'll make sure that they can stay current. And we've also, you know, come up with a plan of how we can help the Water Corporation to pay off the arrears to Anguilla. So at this point in time, we are waiting, you know, Anguilla's response to that proposal.
I noticed also there was a communication tax and telephone and what have you. Now it's the GST is gone on that. What is that? How do that money use in government for communication, IT?
All those go into the consolidated fund and help with to meet all the expenditure that we have. Yes, and so that's how any collections go into the consolidated fund, and then help to meet the expenditure for government.
Okay.
Dr. Webster, as it relates to government areas, and just to piggyback on Mr. Pickering's question as it relates to the Anguilla issue, we know the CEO, he has been on the air and he made mention about some other previous outstanding debt, $20 million that was written off, as well as $28.3 million in duties wrongfully collected from Anguilla. This was, again, several years ago, and he said it totals about $60 million. So is that a proposal that he has officially put forward to government as it relates to the outstanding debt of $60 million, or does it stand at the $14.9 million just for the Water Corporation?
I've seen letters regarding the money owed by the Water Corporation and about the supposed money owed that, you know, I guess how he came about that. I haven't heard any official or seen anything official. I just heard on radio about the rest that made up the 60-something million. But in terms of, you know, there is a request for duties paid on diesel. And, you know, certainly there was, and part of the legislation that the government may, you know, make the diesel duty free for Anguilla. However, whatever timing there is, Anguilla never paid the duties. The duties were paid by the supplier. And so that is something that would have to be taken under consideration in terms of Anglec would then have passed on, that to the consumers, because if they got whatever they were paying for the diesel from the supplier, I'm sure that Anglec would have passed it on in its rates. So those are things that we are, that are open for discussion.
I have a question for the Minister for Education Sports. What is the position with the basketball court in Blowing Point? And my thing is, the complex, or whatever you call it. And
Thanks for the question. Yeah, so there's definitely still plans to look at developing a basketball court in Blowing Point. We're just trying to ensure that we have all the requisite paperwork and everything in order before we progress.
And what about in terms of track and field? What type of facilities we have available now here?
Is that okay? So of course, at the moment, track and field is sharing a space with cricket for events and sporting activities, so sports day, etc. They're all taking place at the James Ronald Webster Park. We would have planned to have some discussions about placing a track at that particular location. But since then, I've had some discussions with the grant body who we were first contacting and speaking to about funding a track, who then said that it's not a prerequisite. They're taking it out of the criterion for it to be a prerequisite, because I've lobbied them so hard and frequently because of all of the kickback we've been having here. They've taken that out of the criterion. So as a result of that, we're now locating and looking for different parcels of land across the island. We have been requesting persons who do have parcels of land, about 7 to 8 acres, that they're willing to swap, to come forward to state that they are interested, so that we can develop a track with that particular grant fund. So at the moment, that's where we are. We're still in discussion. We're about to start discussions with various persons in relation to a swap. Hopefully we can get that done before the applications need to be submitted. And then we will be able to tell you whether or not where we stand in relation to the facility in a short time. So I'm leaving that. That is also for the general public. If you do have flat parcels of land, 7 to 8 acres, that you can contact the Ministry of Social Development and Education and indicate that you're willing to do a swap for the development of a track. So thank you very much for that question. Thank you.
Dr. Webster, going back to Anglec, could you tell us if there are any investors who may have any interest in doing renewable energy at the company?
Yes, there are at least 7 that we have met or spoken with. And, when we came in June of 2020, the following month, there was a company that Anglec had been negotiating with in terms of renewable energy, and also in terms of cleaning up the Corito, dump site, because they had done some work in one of the neighboring territories. Since then, we have been approached by, or have met with, several companies. And in fact, as I said, at least 7. And some have been here, some have called, and some have local representatives that have met with us on their behalf. And so there is a lot of interest, and a lot of urgent interest. to build a renewable energy project to provide that power here in Anguilla so that we can have decreased cost of electricity, green the environment, and also to decrease the cost of living. I want to thank you very much for your time and for being here. I know that it takes time out of your day to be here with us, but I thank you for being here so that you can take the facts away from the government of Anguilla, because certainly there are a lot of misplaced non-facts that are out there. I want to thank Radio Anguilla, thank Lloyd's Live, thank KCN Channel 4. I want to thank Dites, of course, for always being diligent and being present and continuing to do the great work that you do. And I think you, Dites, you had a relative that, turned 100 and, is it 109? Oh, that's awesome. Congratulations to Ms. Hughes, Ms. Connor down there in South Hill last week. And she turned 109. Oldest person in Anguilla, so that is great. Congratulations. Ministerial Assistant Courtney, thank you for being here, and ministers, thank you for your time and your service. And 2 weeks from now, we should have another conference, and we look forward to you being here. Thanks again. May God bless you. May God keep us safe from hurricanes, other natural disasters, and pandemics, and may God continue to bless Anguilla.